Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello students. In this nice occasion, I would like to discuss with you about proofreading. Proofreading is a kind of activity that is usually done by the writer at the end of the process of the writing. Okay. Proofreading also includes the skill, an automatic skill that need to be possessed by a writer in order to find or identify probable mistakes, shortcomings, and blemishes in writing the paragraphs. Right? There are actually several things that we need to consider in doing proofreading. Well, in doing proofreading, we have to consider the irrelevant, redundant sentences and lack of focus in the paragraphs. It means that whenever we proofread a paragraph, we will always, sometimes we find redundant sentences which hinder us from the real meaning or the real communication of the paragraph. Some sentences overlap the other sentences, therefore we need to omit these sentences. And also some paragraphs also labeled as lack of focus because any part of this paragraph discussed out of the topic, right? And in doing the proofreading, we also have to be able, as a writer, we have also to be able to recognize the spelling and special words problem. We also deal with mechanics, capitalizations, abbreviations, contraction, and punctuations. And the last one of the important one is about the word choice, because the way a writer chooses the word in his writing will determine the way he communicates his intended meaning. Right. Let's begin from the first thing, which is redundant sentences. Redundant sentences are those stating or informing about things exactly the same as what have been formally discussed by a previous sentence. Therefore, it needs to be omitted. It means that some sentences in some paragraphs written by writers overlap the previous sentences. Right. Let's see the example below. Look at the topic sentence of this paragraph. I like books because they can become my real friends every time I feel lonely. So the topic sentence is that the writer likes the books. Now look at the second sentence. Books bring me new knowledge. This second sentence support the idea of the topic sentence. And if we have a look at the third sentence, they inform me new information. You can see the difference between the second sentence and the third sentence. Yes, the wordings are different, but the intended meaning are the same. It means that the third sentence already overlaps the second sentence. Therefore, we need to omit this third sentence here. Right. The next point is about lack of focus. A paragraph is labeled as a lack of focus whenever a single part of it goes out of the topic. Right. Let me give you an example from this piece of paragraphs. Look at the topic sentence of these paragraphs. My Sundays have been so much of joy due to constant fun activities. Well, the topic sentence of this paragraph is about the constant activities that have been done by the writer to indicate his lovely Sundays. Right. If you have a look at the second sentence, one Sunday in the last month, I went fishing with my family. Right. Let's stop in this sentence first. When fishing with family indicates a fun activity which has already been told in the first sentence or in the topic sentence. But as you go to the next sentences from this one, however, when I was fishing, my boss called and I had to go back to my office for finishing my late paper. It was so tiring since the paper was a bit high data demanding. Then I had to get the data online. See, these sentences even dominate the paragraphs, and it doesn't actually indicate the happiness of the Sundays. So we can conclude that these sentences go beyond the topics. So you can see that this paragraph is labeled as a lack of focus because the parts of this paragraph discuss beyond the topic. All right. Now, the next point that we need to discuss is about the word choice. This one is very important. A good word choice determine a good piece of writing. You can train yourself by experiencing a lot of reading practices and using corpora, right? To be able to master a word choice in writing is something very complicated and difficult. To do this, in order to gain this, you need to make yourself so much experience, especially in extensive reading. You need to read a very extensive of reading materials and a very wide range of genres in English. And you also need to experience yourself with complicated grammar, various vocabularies, and various expressions in English. It takes time, of course. You cannot just do it in one time or in two times or in just a week or in just a month. It takes time or even years to do this. Well, just for example, rather than writing, "I'm sorry to make you unhappy," you can write this instead: "I'm sorry to let you down." How do I know that "let you down" uh, uh, represents the meaning of make you unhappy? It depends on your reading experience. And the second example, rather than writing, "I need an empty paper for my assignment." The use of empty as an adjective of the paper here seems inappropriate. It's better for you to write like this: "I need a blank paper for my assignment." Right. Sometimes this is very difficult for students to understand. This is very difficult for students like you to understand. If you are lack of reading experience, if you are lack of experience in English expressions and um, idioms and word choice, if you never discuss or never consult your dictionary, it will be quite difficult for you as a student. Well, in doing the proofreading, as you get the skill automatic in yourself, you will be able to identify that a certain word choice that the writer use is mistakenly done, right? Well, the next point is about word recognition, spelling, special words problem. As a writer, you actually have an automatic ability to identify or to recognize whether a certain word used by a writer is appropriate or not. For example, in this sentence, I asked them to be quiet, to be quiet, or to be quiet. Which one is correct? Well, you have to determine by yourself. It depends on your experience, of course, right? Or maybe you can consult with your dictionary later on. Well, the next example, the next points is the capitalization, abbreviation, construction, and punctuation. You also need to familiarize yourself with this. For example, like Jakarta. In writing a proper noun like Jakarta, wherever it is placed and wherever it is located, we need to write Jakarta, the first alphabet of Jakarta in capital, right? And perhaps you also need to learn the abbreviation of in English like DIY. This one is very famous today. DIY stands for do it yourself. ASAP stands for as soon as possible. You also need to familiarize yourself with contraction in English like won't. It actually means will not. And then I think you need to be aware of full stop, comma, and the function of contextual clues in English, like parentheses, dashes, colon, and semicolon. They have they have a certain intended communication purpose, especially for writers. When the writer use them in the writing, it means that they try to communicate something with you as the reader. Right? You need to familiarize yourself. This is what we call by contextual clues. Right. Now, as you already been familiar with some things that we need to consider, that we need to take into account in doing proofreading, now let's come into example. I would like to give you an example on how to edit a simple paragraph. Well, this paragraph, I took it from a certain source in the internet. Then I would like to go with you and proofreading this paragraph. Well, let's start from The first one. Well, what do you think about this? How do we edit this? Indonesia student go abroad. Have a look at the topic sentence. Indonesia student go abroad to experience other cultures and to attend abroad universities. Well, as you see that the subject of this sentence is student, a singular noun, but the verbs here indicates plural. Perhaps since the student represent Indonesia, I think we should correct this writing into plural noun. Yeah, Indonesia students go abroad to experience other cultures and to attend abroad universities. Then now it makes sense, right? And for Indonesia students, staying abroad can become a means of experiencing other cultures. For them, going overseas will make them experience different cultures. So if we have a look at the third sentence here, this third sentence actually overlaps the intended meaning of the second sentence. As you see from the second sentence that Indonesian students staying abroad can become a means of experiencing other cultures. Well, the topic is about the idea is about experiencing other cultures, but again this idea is again told in the third sentence. So in this case we need to omit the third sentence as it overlaps the second sentence. By living in a country where English is spoken, next, by living in a country where English is spoken, they can acquire the language as well as the indigenous cultures. Okay, I think the sentence is okay. And then they can work there for a living. Well, this sentence seems to be a quite problem for us. They can work there for a living. This sentence discuss about getting a certain job abroad. But if we refer back to the topic sentence, Indonesia students go abroad to experience first cultures and to attend abroad universities. So since the topic sentence talk about other cultures and experience in studying in abroad universities, then why should the writer discuss or put a single sentence here by saying that they can work there for a living? So it means that this sentence hinder the focus or making the focus of the paragraph lower. So therefore we need to omit this sentence as well. In additions, they can research. Well, in additions, I think we have a misspelling here. We need to add the D in the addition in order to make it correct, right? So they can research new living habits while staying with a new family, such as DIY. They can research new living habits. Do they really do the research? Or maybe they can study, not research. Then we replace this word research by study. Okay, they can study. Maybe they can learn. Yeah, these two words seem more appropriate. Then we also have DIY. DIY. We as a proofreader, we need to understand that DIY stands for do it yourself. Okay, and not only the cultures, studying abroad also offers a better quality of learning and gives more room for learning. Well, learning is written in capital. Well, since this is not a proper noun or something, then we need to replace this capital alphabet into small alphabet, something like that. So it cannot be denied that all of this can hardly be found in their home country. Finally, the final goals, why student? Okay, so here are some examples of errors and mistakes committed by the writer of these paragraphs. Then as in conclusion, we as a proofreader, we need to be sensitive, we need to be content, and we need to be knowledgeable enough in terms of grammar and mechanics so that it becomes an automatic skill in order for us to be able to proofread any written text from ourselves, for example, or maybe from our friends. So please, if we refer back again to the previous one, do consider these things before you do the proofreadings, because it needs practice. It cannot be mastered automatically. It cannot be mastered within very short period of time. You need times to do this. Therefore, you need practice. Thank you very much.